Hi Barbie and hi Ken. Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage and the Barbie movie directed by Greta Gerwig, written by Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach and starring Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling as Barbie and Ken sure sounds like the perfect combination. A live-action Barbie movie has actually been in some state of development for more than a decade. And with more than 1 billion sold dolls since Mattel's first Barbie in 1959, one might wonder what took them so long. In the animation sector, there actually has been more than 40 movies already, but this is the first attempt not only to do it in live action, but also to give it another spin. Surprisingly, this adaptation's main target audience isn't really young children, specifically little girls. It's aiming higher. It's not a mere toy commercial. It wants to do something cleverer with the material. It's also not just a let's put Barbie in the real world kind of movie, not just a fish out of water narrative. Even though that's what's happening in the first half, and it's pretty hilarious. Genre-wise, this Barbie is also not so much a fantasy adventure, but more a full-fledged comedy. A comedy with a very strong feminist social message. In such a strong way that the topics, the themes, kind of become the story itself. They are front and center and what the jokes and character arcs are all about. Honestly, that can be a bit much at times, but it also fits, because it's Barbie we are talking about, and making a Barbie movie in 2023 more or less just has to be about gender equality, the patriarchy, and all those lovely topics. I mean, it's a pretty perfect opportunity to do something fun with it. And for the most part, I think Barbie is a pretty nice and fun and sometimes clever summer comedy. That this is something a little bolder and more edgy, if you haven't guessed by looking at the creative team, becomes clear early on when our protagonist Barbie, in the middle of a happy-go-lucky song, just asks all the other Barbies around her if they sometimes think about dying too. Yes, this isn't your typical children's movie. This story is set in motion by Barbie suffering an existential crisis. But before that, we are of course introduced into this shiny, bright, pink and colorful world simply known as Barbie Land. And in best Lego movie manner, we are having some fun with the franchise and all its idiosyncrasies. Dream houses that don't have stairs, showers with no water in them, all the women are named Barbie, except for that pregnant lady Mitch, a toy line that got some backlash when it came out. All the men are named Ken, except for Ellen, who is the only Ellen there. And of course, when Margot Robbie's Barbie is stepping out of her pink shoes, she's only tiptoeing, because the doll was built that way for the longest time. Barbie is a fun movie, and not a small part also stems from the beautiful production design, the costumes, makeup and just all the different elements that bring this world to life. For people who grew up with Barbie, and these movies are of course always a big nostalgic draw as well, there are probably a lot of big and small references or Easter eggs to be found. My personal connection to Barbie is limited to having a little sister who had some dolls when she was young. So that's not really an element that did anything extra for me. Not a small part either in bringing this world and film to life is of course the cast. And Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling are pretty perfect. Appearance-wise, obviously, but also when it comes to the comedic chops and emotional beats, even though the latter didn't work that well for me in the end. But comedy-wise, Ryan Gosling is just gold. Throughout his career, I think he always shines the most if he's allowed to be funny, and his Ken is to die for. In a heightened way, Barbie Land is somewhat the opposite of our real world. Here, it's all about the women. The Barbies are the stars, the main attraction, the ones in charge, the ones with the great jobs, the big dream houses, the constant girls' nights, and so on. The Kens were designed to be attachments, not much more than glorified doofuses to some degree. And having Ryan Gosling play such a character is just hilarious. He wants nothing more than Barbie's attention, but she's just not that interested, especially now that she began to wonder about life and death. The plot thickens and the themes thicken when she embarks on a journey to the real world, which isn't that hard. You just have to drive a bit with the car, then a while by boat, a short road through space, And finally, with roller skates before you arrive in Los Angeles. And with this being a full-on comedy, the fun and silliness and absurdity of their world isn't really limited to Barbie Land, which is probably the most obvious once the CEO of Mattel is introduced, because he's played by none other than Will Ferrell. And it's another one of those really outlandish, but here also quite charming and almost adorable Will Ferrell roles. Surprise, surprise, in the real world, the CEO of Mattel and all other important people in charge are all men. Which comes as another big blow to our protagonist, but also as a big revelation or salvation for our male sidekick Ken. He discovers patriarchy, and he loves it. And when Barbie returns to Barbie Land, the movie's doing a nice little Back to the Future Part 2 variation that's really a lot of fun. In general, it's nice how openly the movie plays with the whole gender topic, even though not all of the gags worked for me. Comedy, as always, is super subjective, and while most jokes worked fine for me, some just fell flat. Be it because I thought the 2001 and the Matrix references are just a bit overdone and tired in 2023, be it because I thought some punchlines were super obvious, or because something just wasn't for me. On the other hand, I definitely laughed out loud a few times as well, mostly when it's something with Ryan Gosling, but also when the movie goes that extra step and throws something quite unexpected and crass in there. I'm also always a sucker for some fun song sequences, and the movie has a few of those. I think the overall pacing could have been a little bit faster, the runtime of almost 2 hours felt a bit long at times, and especially the last segment is a bit too drawn out. Especially the emotional part, when the joke density is stretching a bit thin. The emotional foundation and the mother-daughter relationship introduced felt a bit too simple. Which is alright for a comedy like this, but it was just not as special or emotional as I hoped for. Towards the end, I also had kind of enough with the whole patriarchy/empowerment angle because it was so front and center, but maybe also because it comes across as a bit muddled or oversimplified. But then again, I understand it in light of this being a lighthearted comedy that is just having fun with the material and how you can look at it through today's perspective. So in the end, Barbie didn't completely wow me, but it has enough to make it a fun and clever enough comedy and twist on the world's most famous doll. So in German I'd say, eine lustige und clevere Komödie und Spielart der berühmtesten Puppe der Welt. Super zum Leben erweckt durch Sets, Kostüme und alles was dazu gehört und mit einer bezaubernden Margot Robbie und einem absolut urkomischen Ryan Gosling. I give Barbie 7 out of 10. It's more like 7.3, but I don't do that. Alright, that's it like always. Comment below and let me know what you think about Barbie. You can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd and also on Patreon, simply at TheJimmyCage. And if you enjoyed this episode, please give me a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like. And make sure you hit that bell for all I have to tell.